Welcome, Spicy Lady. The woman who walks alone often sees the farthest. Spicy Lady Sigma do not chase the usual paths everyone else follows. They build their own quiet strength in a noisy world. These women operate outside the everyday social games. They stay self-reliant, observant, and deeply rooted in their own values without needing constant company or applause. Think of them as the rare ones who move through life with purpose, but without fanfare. They choose depth over drama, real connections over crowds, and personal standards over popularity. In everyday terms, a Spicy Lady Sigma might be the colleague who delivers excellent work without joining every office chat, or the friend who listens more than she speaks, yet always gives advice that sticks. Here's a glimpse into 10 different types of Spicy Lady Sigma. Each brings her own flavor of independence and quiet power. You will recognize pieces of yourself or women you know in these descriptions. Number 10 lands, especially close to home for many, revealing a truth that changes how you see strength and solitude. Stick around until the end. It ties everything together in a way that feels personal and real. Also understand that you may display all 10 types or only a few of them, depending on the context or situations you are in. These types show how Sigma energy shows up in daily life, from creative thinkers carving original careers to resilient survivors who rebuild without complaint, strategic planners who protect their peace fiercely, and more. They remind us that real confidence often whispers instead of shouting. And true freedom comes from knowing yourself deeply. Watch until the finish. Number 10 will hit home and give you fresh perspective on what it really means to stand solid on your own terms. Let's dive deeper. The Spicy Lady. Number 1, the silent observer. She notices everything but reacts to almost nothing. The silent observer is the type of Spicy Lady Sigma people often misunderstand at first glance. She may appear calm, quiet, and almost invisible in social situations. But that silence is not emptiness. It is awareness. While others are busy talking, reacting, and expressing every thought out loud, she is paying attention to everything happening around her. She notices small details that most people ignore. How someone's tone changes when a certain topic comes up. Who smiles genuinely and who only smiles when they are being watched. Who listens with interest and who is just waiting for their turn to speak. Most people do not even notice the exact moment she starts pulling away. That is the part people find surprising later. They often think she left suddenly, but in reality, she had been observing and deciding for a long time before anything changed on the outside. The silent observer does not react to everything. She understands everything first. Number 2, the intellectual predator. Her greatest weapon is mental sharpness. She doesn't dominate rooms loudly. She reads books most people avoid. She asks questions people fear. She notices contradictions others miss. The intellectual predator is the type of Spicy Lady Sigma that makes people uncomfortable without even trying. Not because she is rude or arrogant, but because she sees through things too quickly. She notices the small contradictions people hope nobody catches. A person claiming to be honest while constantly hiding information. Someone pretending to be confident while desperately needing attention from everybody around them. Someone preaching loyalty while secretly betraying people behind closed doors. She notices all of it. What makes her different is that her intelligence is not just academic. It is psychological, emotional, observational. She studies human behavior the same way other people study entertainment. While most people are distracted by appearances, status, and charm, she pays attention to patterns, reactions, tone changes, and hidden intentions. For example, imagine a conversation where someone keeps trying to sound superior by interrupting others constantly. Most people either stay quiet or become emotional. But the intellectual predator may calmly ask one simple question like, if you are truly confident, why do you always need to dominate every conversation? Suddenly, the entire atmosphere changes, not because she shouted, but because she exposed something real that everybody secretly noticed already. That is what makes this type powerful. She does not attack emotionally. She dismantles people mentally. She also tends to read things most people avoid because they require deeper thinking. Psychology, philosophy, human nature, emotional intelligence, manipulation, power dynamics. She wants to understand why people behave the way they do, not just what they show publicly. Over time, this gives her a dangerous ability to predict behavior before it fully reveals itself. And shallow people hate this type of woman because manipulation stops working around her. Guilt tactics do not easily affect her. Fake charm does not impress her for long. Emotional games become useless once someone understands the patterns behind them. The most fascinating part is that she rarely needs to raise her voice. She does not waste energy proving she is intelligent. In fact, some of the smartest things she notices never leave her mouth at all. She simply watches, listens, and mentally connects details other people completely miss. That calmness is what unsettles people the most. Because deep down people know it is difficult to fool someone who pays attention to everything, but speaks only when necessary. Number 3. The Controlled Volcano. The Controlled Volcano is one of the most dangerous types of spicy Lady Sigma because most people never see the pressure building inside her until it is far too late. On the surface, she looks calm, patient, disciplined, and emotionally stable. She does not react to every insult. She does not argue over every misunderstanding. She does not create scenes every time she feels hurt. Because of this, people often assume she is unaffected. That is the mistake. What many people fail to understand is that silence does not always mean peace. Sometimes silence means restraint. Sometimes it means someone is carrying disappointment, frustration, anger, exhaustion, and emotional pain quietly because they are trying to stay in control of themselves. The Control Volcano has usually spent years mastering emotional discipline. She learned early that constant emotional reactions solve very little. So instead of exploding immediately, she absorbs things she tolerates more than most people realize. The disrespectful comments, the fake apologies, the emotional manipulation, the moments where people continuously test her patience because they mistake calmness for weakness. For example, imagine a woman constantly being taken for granted in a relationship. She communicates calmly. She gives chances. She tries to understand. But the other person keeps crossing the same lines because they assume she will always stay patient. What they do not realize is that every repeated action is quietly adding pressure beneath the surface. And then one day the eruption comes. Sometimes it is not even loud. That is what shocks people the most. There is no dramatic screaming or emotional breakdown. Instead, she becomes cold, emotionally detached, and completely done. The care disappears. The tolerance disappears. The emotional access disappears. Suddenly, the same person who once gave endless understanding now looks at people with complete emotional distance. That moment confuses people because they only saw the final reaction. They did not notice the months or even years of accumulated frustration hidden beneath discipline and silence. The deepest truth about the Controlled Volcano is this. Her anger is rarely impulsive. It is accumulated pain that was ignored for too long. And honestly, people often regret pushing this type of woman to her limit because once she finally emotionally disconnects, it becomes almost impossible to reach the version of her that once cared deeply. The explosion is never the beginning of the problem. It is usually the final stage of silent endurance. Number 4, the Adaptive Chameleon. She can fit into almost any environment without losing herself. Corporate rooms, quiet cafes, intellectual spaces, lonely phases, social events. She adapts instantly. But adaptation is not the same as belonging. The Adaptive Chameleon is one of the most interesting spicy Lady Sigma types because she can blend into almost any environment without struggling. Put her in a corporate office and she understands the language of professionalism. Put her in a quiet cafe and she fits into the calm energy. Put her in a social gathering and she can hold conversations easily. Put her alone in her own space and she is completely comfortable there. On the surface, it looks like she belongs everywhere. But inside her experience is more complicated than that. The truth is adaptation is not the same as belonging. She does not change who she is at the core, but she learns how people behave in different environments. She reads tones, body language, energy shifts, and social expectations very quickly. Because of this, she knows how to adjust her communication style depending on who she is dealing with. For example, she can speak formally in a business setting, then switch to relaxed and simple conversation with friends without losing her identity. But over time, something interesting happens. When you understand too many environments and too many types of people, You start noticing how different everyone is when they are performing roles. The confident friend who is insecure when alone. The calm professional who becomes competitive under pressure. The friendly person who only shows warmth when it benefits them socially. She sees all of it clearly, and that is where emotional distance slowly begins. Not because she dislikes people, but because she stops seeing authenticity as common. Once someone has seen too many masks, it becomes harder to immediately trust what is real. For example, she might attend a social event and easily interact with everyone. She understands the jokes, the topics, the energy. But when she gets home, she may still feel like she was observing rather than truly connecting, like she participated in the moment but did not fully belong to it. That is the hidden side of the adaptive chameleon. She is socially capable, but emotionally selective. She can move through different worlds with ease. But deep down, she is constantly filtering what feels real and what feels performed. And the more she adapts, the more she realizes that true connection is not about fitting in everywhere. It is about finding the few spaces where she does not need to adjust at all. Number 5. The lone builder. The lone builder is a spicy Lady Sigma type that most people only recognize when it is already too late to ignore her growth. At the beginning, she may look ordinary in the eyes of others. She is not constantly posting about her goals. She's not always talking about her dreams. She's not trying to convince anyone that she is becoming successful. Instead, she's quietly working on her life when nobody is watching. What makes her different is her relationship with time and focus. While many people spend energy on attention, opinions, and social validation, she spends hers on building something real. Skills, income, knowledge, stability. She understands that attention fades quickly, but results stay. For example, while others are busy sharing every small achievement online, she may be learning a new skill in private, saving money consistently, or building a small project that no one knows about. It might start as something simple like learning digital skills, starting a small online business, or improving a craft. At first, it looks small and almost invisible, but she is not focused on how it looks now. She is focused on what it becomes later. Over time, that quiet discipline compounds. The skills improve. The financial stability grows. The confidence becomes real, not performed, and one day, people suddenly notice the difference. They see she is not where she used to be. She has built something that now speaks louder than anything she ever said. That is when people often become surprised. They ask when it started or how it happened so quickly, but the truth is it was never sudden. It was slow, consistent, and private. The lone builder understands something most people ignore. If your progress depends on applause, it becomes fragile. But if your progress is built in silence, it becomes strong enough to last. She does not rush validation. She does not measure her worth by early attention. She is comfortable with being unseen during the process because she trusts the outcome of consistency. And eventually, when her results become visible, they no longer feel like a surprise to her. They feel like the natural result of everything she quietly committed to when nobody was clapping. Number 6. The trauma-made Sigma. The trauma-made Sigma is not someone who started life with emotional distance. She did not choose to become guarded or selective in how she connects with people. Life shaped her into it through experience, not preference. At some point, she went through situations that changed the way she sees people. Maybe she trusted friends who later betrayed her confidence. Maybe she gave loyalty to people who only stayed when things were easy. Maybe she experienced relationships where her feelings were used against her. Or maybe she learned early that depending too much on others can sometimes lead to disappointment. These experiences do not make her heartless. They make her careful. Over time, she begins to understand patterns in human behavior. She notices who is consistent and who only shows up when it benefits them. She learns that not every smile is genuine and not every promise is stable. Slowly, she stops reacting emotionally to everything and starts observing instead. For example, she may once have been the type of person who trusted quickly and loved openly. But after repeated disappointment, she learns to pause before letting people in. Not because she hates connection, but because she has seen what happens when trust is given too easily to the wrong hands. This type of woman often becomes very self-sufficient emotionally. She learns how to sit with her own thoughts. She learns how to solve her own problems without relying on constant reassurance from others. She learns how to protect her peace, even if it means being misunderstood at times. People around her might misjudge this change. They may think she is distant or hard to approach, but they do not always see the story behind her behavior. They do not see the moments where she had to rebuild herself quietly after disappointment. They only see the version of her that learned to move differently after pain. The trauma-made Sigma is not cold by nature. She is simply selective by experience. She can still care deeply, still understand people, still connect on a real level, but only when there is consistency and honesty involved. And perhaps the most powerful part of her journey is this: she did not lose her emotional depth. She refined it. She learned where to invest it and where to protect it. Number 7. The feminine predator. The feminine predator is not what her name sounds like at first glance. She is not chasing people. She is not trying to force attraction, and she is not playing loud games to get attention. Instead, she understands something most people miss about human behavior. People reveal more about themselves when they are trying too hard to impress. She watches not with judgment, but with awareness. She pays attention to how people act when they are nervous, when they are trying to be liked, or when they feel the need to prove something. In those moments, people accidentally expose their habits, insecurities, and real intentions. For example, when someone meets her and suddenly starts talking too much, trying too hard to sound impressive, or constantly mentioning achievements, she notices the pattern. It is not the words that tell her everything. It is the pressure behind the words. The need to be validated gives away more than honesty ever could. This type of woman does not rush attraction. She studies it. She lets people reveal themselves naturally instead of trying to decode them through assumptions. That if someone is kind only when they want something, she notices. If someone becomes overly charming in the beginning but inconsistent later, she notices that too. If someone respects her space without being told, she also notices that. What makes her different is that she does not react emotionally to every display of attention. She does not fall for performance. She understands that real character shows up when there is no pressure to impress. For example, in a social setting, while others may be focused on making a strong impression, she is observing how people treat those who cannot offer anything in return. How they speak when they are not the center of attention, how they behave when they think nobody important is watching. That is where she gathers her understanding of who they really are. The feminine predator is not dangerous because she manipulates people. She is powerful because she understands them. And when someone understands human behavior deeply, they do not need to chase attention or force attraction. She simply waits, observes, and lets reality reveal itself. And in that quiet awareness, most people unknowingly expose more than they intended. Number 8, the Peace Addict. The Peace Addict is the type of spicy Lady Sigma who has no tolerance for emotional chaos anymore. It is not because she cannot handle conflict, but because she has already been through enough of it to understand its cost. For her, peace is not just a preference. It is a necessity. She has experienced what happens when life is filled with unnecessary arguments, mixed signals, emotional games, and constant stress from people who are never stable. Over time, she realizes something very important. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every relationship deserves repeated explanations, though. She begins to protect her energy more carefully. For example, if she is dealing with someone who constantly creates confusion, one day warm, the next distant, she does not keep chasing clarity forever. Instead of entering endless discussions to fix something that keeps breaking, she slowly steps back. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion, because she understands that peace disappears quickly when she keeps trying to fix people who are not consistent. In friendships, she becomes the person who values simplicity over drama. If a friend constantly brings negativity, gossip, or emotional instability, she does not wait for things to become worse. She distances herself early. Not because she hates people, but because she has learned that her mind works better in calm environments. Even in relationships, she does not stay where emotional confusion becomes normal. If communication is unclear, if respect is inconsistent, or if emotional stress becomes a routine, she starts losing interest naturally. Not because she is cold, but because her mind cannot function in constant emotional noise anymore. What people often misunderstand about her is this: she is not avoiding life. She is choosing a healthier way to experience it. She knows that peace is not something you find in others. It is something you protect within yourself. And anything that repeatedly disturbs that peace slowly loses its place in her life. That is why she is quick to cut off situations that drain her emotionally, not because she is harsh, but because she has learned the value of mental clarity. In the end, the peace addict is not someone who runs from people. She is someone who runs toward calmness, stability, and emotional balance. And once she experiences that level of peace, she becomes very selective about what she allows back into her life. Number 9. The mirror sigma. She reflects energy instead of forcing it. Respect? She gives respect. Distance? She becomes unreachable. The mirror sigma is one of the most psychologically powerful types of spicy lady sigma because she does not waste energy forcing people to treat her properly. Instead, she reflects energy back to them. If someone gives respect, warmth, honesty, and consistency, she returns that same energy naturally. But if someone becomes distant, manipulative, selfish, or emotionally confusing, her behavior changes immediately, not out of revenge, but out of awareness. That is what unsettles people. Most people are used to relationships where one person constantly chases, explains, tolerates bad behavior, or keeps giving chances even after repeated disrespect. The mirror sigma does the opposite. She pays attention to patterns and responds accordingly. She believes actions reveal truth faster than words ever will. For example, if someone suddenly becomes inconsistent with communication, she notices it without creating unnecessary drama. Instead of begging for attention or demanding explanations every 5 minutes, she quietly matches the distance. If someone becomes cold, she becomes emotionally unavailable too. If someone starts playing manipulation games, she stops giving them emotional access altogether. And this is where things become uncomfortable for toxic people. Toxic individuals often expect emotional reactions because emotional reactions give them control. They expect arguments, pleading, chasing, guilt, or emotional chaos. But the mirror sigma refuses to absorb that energy. She does not fight every battle loudly because she understands something important. Some people expose themselves best when you stop interrupting their behavior. That is why people often reveal their true nature around her without realizing it. A selfish person eventually becomes exposed when she stops overgiving. A manipulator becomes frustrated when emotional control stops working. A dishonest person becomes nervous when they realize she notices inconsistencies quietly instead of confronting them emotionally. And honestly, this type of woman teaches people lessons without preaching. Her silence changes, her effort changes, her accessibility changes. Suddenly, people begin experiencing the exact same energy they were giving her all along. That is why the mirror sigma feels psychologically intense to many people. She forces self-reflection without directly asking for it. The truth is most people are comfortable judging others, but uncomfortable facing themselves. And the mirror sigma quietly becomes that reflection. She is not trying to punish anyone. She simply understands that relationships become clearer when energy is returned instead of endlessly tolerated. And sometimes the most powerful response is not emotional revenge. It is allowing people to experience themselves through the way they treated you. Number 10. The emotionally intelligent rebel. She rejects social expectations without needing attention for it. She questions traditions, dating norms, fake femininity standards, and performative lifestyles. The burned out romantic is one of the most emotionally complex spicy lady sigma types because she is not someone who stopped believing in love. She still feels deeply. She still wants real connection. She still values loyalty, care, and emotional honesty. But life has changed the way she approaches everything. At some point, she went through experiences that taught her painful lessons. She may have trusted people who spoke beautifully, but acted inconsistently. She may have given effort to relationships where she was only important when convenient. She may have stayed loyal to people who treated her presence as temporary. Over time, all of that creates emotional exhaustion, not emotional emptiness. She has seen fake loyalty where someone only stays until something better appears. She has experienced emotional inconsistency where affection depends on mood instead of commitment. She has met temporary people who show deep interest in the beginning, but disappear when real effort is required. She has dealt with performative affection where love is shown only in public or when it benefits someone's image. She has even been in situations where selfish behavior is disguised as connection, where everything feels one-sided, but is still called love. For example, she might have once been in a relationship where the other person was very sweet in words, but unreliable in actions. They would say the right things during arguments, but repeat the same behavior again and again. At first she tried to understand. Then she tried to fix things. And then she finally realized that effort alone cannot create emotional stability in someone who is not willing to grow. That is where her shift happens. She does not stop loving. She starts loving carefully. She begins to observe actions more than words. She takes her time before trusting people. She does not rush into emotional attachment just because someone feels familiar or exciting in the beginning. People often misunderstand this change. They assume she has high standards or that she is difficult to please. But the truth is simpler and more human. She is not trying to be selective for attention. She is just tired of emotional patterns that once broke her peace. Now she protects her energy more intentionally. Not because she is cold, but because she's learned that even strong hearts can break when trust is given too easily to the wrong people. People do not become distant by accident. They become distant because they finally learned what constant disappointment feels like. Throughout everything we have explored, one thing becomes clear. Spicy Lady Sigma are not a fixed personality type that looks the same in every person. They are a reflection of life experiences, emotional lessons, personal growth, and the way someone chooses to respond to the world around them. Some are silent observers, some are emotional protectors, some are deep thinkers, some are survivors of emotional pain, and some are quiet builders of their own future. The truth is you can relate to all 10 types at different stages of your life, or only a few, depending on what you have been through. People are not one-dimensional. A woman may be emotionally open in one season of life and more guarded in another. She may trust easily at one point and become more selective later. She may be social in one environment and deeply private in another. These types are not about labeling women. They are about understanding behaviors shaped by experience. For example, someone who has faced emotional inconsistency may become more careful with trust. Someone who has been misunderstood may become more observant. Someone who has been through disappointment may become more independent. And someone who has experienced peace after chaos will naturally protect it more than anything else. The core of every Spicy Lady Sigma type is one simple truth. She has learned to think for herself, feel deeply but carefully, and choose her energy wisely. She is not driven by attention or approval, but by awareness and experience. As you reflect on these types, do not just look at others. Think about yourself too. Which patterns do you recognize in your own journey? Which lessons shape the way you think and feel today? Because in reality, these types are not just descriptions of women. They are reflections of how life changes people over time and how people quietly evolve into versions of themselves that the world does not always understand at first glance. Thank you, Spicy Lady, for watching, and God bless.